Hello, my name is Marinelli. I'm a student of journalism at the UCLA Online Extension and a candidate for California governor this year. So today I want to talk to you about an ongoing international scandal and an arms dealing story straight out of the chapters of Yuri Orlov. You know, that character played by Nicolas Cage in Lord of War, the 2005 Hollywood blockbuster about the international arms trade. And this story I want to talk to you about is all centered around a tiny town in the Czech Republic you've probably never heard of and probably can't pronounce, myself included. So in 2013, Bulgarian Prime Minister Boyko Borisov, under pressure from the European Union, rescinded a license to sell and manufacture arms from a Bulgarian arms dealer by the name of Emilian Gebrov, with whom, by the way, the Prime Minister had business dealings in the years immediately preceding his first term as Prime Minister. As a result, Gebrov was forced to move his arms dealing business out of Bulgaria, a country the Foreign Policy Research Institute describes as one with deep cultural, historical, and social political ties to Russia, and into the Czech Republic, a pro-Western member of the European Union and a longtime member of NATO. So what kind of arms dealer is Gebrov? Well, the kind who acquires old military-grade weapons and munitions and hires unskilled workers to prepare them for resale by cleaning them, repainting them, and remarking them appropriately, and in some cases by installing new fuses when necessary. So it goes without saying, of course, that these unskilled workers lack the necessary training to deal with live munitions, that they don't comply with safety requirements, and as a result, they have caused numerous explosions at Gebrov's arms factories and warehouses over the years. So in 2014, a series of some of these explosions occurred at Gebrov's munitions warehouses in the Czech Republic, in that small town that nobody can pronounce. Explosions which, at the time, were considered to be the result of human error, just as they had been every other time before them. After all, these occasional explosions were nothing new, and Gebrov's people knew how to deal with the police when they came around looking to investigate. With Gebrov's unskilled workers being Romani, of the Romani people, in America we kind of refer to them as gypsies, the local Czech officials were not so concerned about their safety, or their lives for that matter. All of this, of course, creating a situation where a Bulgarian arms dealer is using gypsies in a countryside warehouse in the Czech Republic, in the heart of Europe, under the nose of NATO and the European Union, who then takes these poorly refitted and repainted munitions and sells them to buyers in Europe, in the Caucasus, and in Africa. The story of Mr. Gebrov selling arms around the world is a story straight out of Lord of War.
All right, let me see your papers. No, put that away. Let me see your papers.
Yuri Orlov.
Mr. Orlov, always in the wrong place at the right time.
A story of forged and fraudulent customs declarations.
I need to see your papers.
Dmitry.
The end user certificate for this aircraft states Burkina Faso. Nice. Very nice. Did you type this up yourself?
So just as in Lord of War, when Mr. Orlov's military helicopter, for example, was being taken apart by a mechanic at the last minute as the FBI approached and Interpol approached. And then on the customs forms, they described the military helicopter as a helicopter being repurposed for humanitarian purposes in Africa and being shipped separately from its munitions, which were also headed for Africa. Mr. Gebrov likewise declared his artillery barrels to be irrigation pipes and the remaining disarmed tanks as tractors.
The helicopters to be used on humanitarian missions.
Oh, so you're a humanitarian.
Oh, absolutely.
All of this happening right under the nose of the European Union and the United States, a country which I'm sure you know is very protective of its dominance in the international arms trade. But why would the Western world turn a blind eye to Mr. Gebrov's illegal arms activities?
It does not surprise me that any major arm dealers in the world are able to operate under the nose of these supposed watchdogs of them, because they're not watchdogs. The premise of the way we think about this whole concept is wrong. Governments don't exist to make the world a better place. They exist to make the rich richer at the expense of the rest of us. And war is one of the biggest parts of this racket, and they need to create security threats. So they need to have arms dealers able to deal arms and get things out and do things and move these threats around and keep the general population scared in order to justify, in the United States, we would call it the military-industrial complex. Same thing in every other country that has any kind of significant military, is it is used as a tool of corruption to serve the general purpose of government, not to serve the people. So would the EU and NATO want to stop an arms dealer from doing business out of the Czech Republic? No, they would totally want that.
Could it have something to do with the fact that his clients include Georgia, to whom, a few years before the 2008 Ossetian-Georgian conflict with Russia, Gebrov, helped by his friends at the Georgian Defense Ministry, sold artillery shells for Georgian howitzers to be used against Russian soldiers? Could it have something to do with the fact that his clients include Ukraine's new pro-American authorities, those that came into power in 2014, to whom he then sold back Ukrainian munitions and weapons that he acquired from idle and abandoned Ukrainian weapons factories, so that the Ukrainian military could attack ethnic Russian territories in eastern Ukraine, those territories known as Donbass? Could it have something to do with the fact that his clients include militant groups in Syria, such as those backed by the United States in its proxy war against the Syrian government? And here's another question. Those explosions in the Czech Republic happened back in 2014. So why now, some 7 years later, in the year 2021, have these explosions suddenly returned to the forefront of public discussion? And why, when Czech authorities originally considered the 2014 explosions to be the result of human error, gypsies refitting live munitions, are they now blaming Russian secret agents of sabotage? The Russians are behind it now. By the way, the two Russians they say are behind it, and the ones that the Czech officials are pointing the finger to, are none other than the same two individuals being blamed for the poisoning of Sergei Skripal over 1,000 miles away in the United Kingdom.
The two individuals named by the police and CPS are officers from the Russian Military Intelligence Service.
These two Russian secret agents apparently are up to no good. And it's as if Russia, big bad Russia, the country which is always being blamed for everything, has just two secret agents in their secret services. Just two secret agents who, by the way, do very little to obscure or change their appearances as they travel around doing no good in country after country on behalf of the big bad Russian government.
These are the men Czech authorities are searching for. Identified as Alexander Petrov and Ruslan Bosharov, the Czech Republic says the men were in the country at the time of a deadly explosion at an arms depot 7 years ago. On Saturday, Prague accused Russian intelligence services of being involved in the blast.
So apparently, once again, it's Russia's fault. Russia, right? Now, considering the nature of Mr. Gebrov's work, someone who was supplying weapons and munitions to Ukraine to be used in their offensive against Russian civilians in eastern Ukraine in the 2014 civil war in that country, in the aftermath of the Western-backed Ukrainian Revolution, which brought pro-Western leaders into power in Kiev, perhaps it would be fair to say that these explosions, regardless of what sparked them, actually saved lives. But I digress. But that really is the central question, isn't it? What sparked these explosions in the munitions warehouse in the Czech Republic in 2014? And on top of that, who stood to benefit from them? If you were to ask Czech officials back then, they did not even know what was in the warehouse at the time. And they investigated for 7 years, coming to no conclusion until now. Until now, in 2021, they were uncertain. And now they're certain, all of a sudden, that these two mischievous Russian agents are to blame. And as a result, the Czech Republic and the Czech government have expelled Russian diplomats from the Czech Republic.
The Czech Republic ordered 18 Russian diplomats to leave within 72 hours after linking Russian spies to a 2014 explosion at an arms depot southeast of Prague. Prague says it's told NATO and the EU that it believes Russia was behind the explosion years ago. Russia has called Prague's allegations absurd, since Czech authorities previously blamed the blast on the depot's owners.
So the Czech government is now, 7 years later, blaming the Russian government and their secret services for this explosion. And the resulting expulsion of Russian diplomats from the Czech Republic came just days after the United States expelled Russian diplomats in response to alleged Russian interference in their elections.
Breaking this morning, the White House is expelling 10 Russian diplomats as part of a new round of sanctions.
Other European Union and NATO countries likewise have expelled Russian diplomats or have otherwise expressed their solidarity with the Czech Republic, including Bulgaria. That's right, the same Bulgaria led by Prime Minister Borisov, who expelled this month a Russian diplomat in connection with the alleged Russian involvement in those explosions. Meanwhile, the European Union is on record saying that painful sanctions against Russia are needed. And there is the key word: sanctions. Why is there a rush to expel Russian diplomats and place sanctions against Russia because of its alleged involvement in explosions at an arms depot in 2014?
Russia may have been, to some degree, an opposing superpower to the United States decades ago, but even then, it was more of a propaganda punching bag than a real threat. And as all governments rely on creating a sense of tribalism among their victims, or as they would call them, citizens, there is always a need to drum up fear of the other, xenophobia, fear of the outsiders. And so in the United States, there's a kind of recycling of fear porn, and it makes perfect sense that Russia is coming up again as a target now that so many others have worn thin.
Perhaps it has something to do with the upcoming meeting between US President Joseph Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin? Did Washington spread the message to its European allies that it needs leverage against Moscow to give Biden tools to secure concessions from Putin? Are these sanctions and diplomats just tools for the American side to bring to the table and hold over Putin's head? Is that what is behind this deluge of anti-Russian media stories and Russophobia? It kind of seems like, to me, like it's a race between European Union and NATO members to see who can please the United States the most by publicly denouncing Russia, by expelling their diplomats, and by placing sanctions against Russia. Do the Czech authorities and its European allies really care about that arms depot explosion back in 2014? Or are they just serving the needs of a US president who lacks leverage against Putin?
Hi, Neil. I would cancel the meeting because President Biden has not built up a position of strength going into this meeting.
Well, in a recent interview with Blask, former Czech President Klaus expressed his disappointment towards the current situation and the actions of the Czech Republic. In his opinion, all Czech politics right now, both internal and external, are chaotic at the moment. He said that policy is being set by non-professionals, by those who are not looking into the future, at the bigger picture, but by those who are guided by the immediate situation. Joe Biden is set to meet Vladimir Putin this summer in Geneva. Therefore, there's nothing to be surprised about when the Czech Republic, after 7 years of fruitless investigation, starts pointing the finger to Russia without, by the way, any direct evidence of Russian involvement. So, if it wasn't Russia, as the Czechs claim, then who? Well, instead of big bad Russians and their 2 secret agents, could the explosions in the Czech Republic have simply been the result of a dispute between Boyko Borisov and Emilian Gabrov? Remember, before Borisov became Prime Minister of Bulgaria in 2009, the two were both long involved in the same line of work, munitions, and predominantly expired munitions at that. So that leaves us with the possibility that maybe it wasn't big bad Russia and their two special agents who get blamed for everything, but instead a dispute between two arms dealers, or perhaps even an orchestrated dispute. Consider this. Borisov, as Prime Minister of Bulgaria, just expelled a Russian diplomat from that country as a sign of solidarity with the Czech Republic and the other Western allies who've done the same. And Gebrov, of course, is out there selling weapons to be used against the Russian military and Russian citizens in Donbass. It seems like this is all just a big orchestrated media scandal to tarnish Russia's reputation and give the West some leverage that they need to get some concessions from Russia. After all, lifting sanctions and allowing Russia to return its diplomats to countries across Europe seems like something that would appeal to Putin. But first, the Americans needed those diplomats to be expelled and for sanctions to be put into place. And that perhaps is why the Czech Republic decided that Russia is responsible for those explosions. That happened, by the way, 7 years ago. It shall be interesting to see what happens and what comes of the meeting between Biden and Putin this summer in Geneva.
The American federal government is the single largest criminal enterprise in the world. And a major part of its racket is manipulating armed conflict. They do this not only through their overt declarations of war, their undeclared wars, their decades-long occupations of foreign countries where they had no business in the first place, but also through the creation of demons and threats and specters where there were none. And one of the ways they do that is through manipulating the international arms trade. So they have a huge interest in making sure that it continues and making sure that arms dealers are able to do business and create new threats that they can blow way out of proportion in order to justify the much more obvious open parts of the racket of militarism.